to Run to Win show, where we bring you inspiring stories, experiences and trivia from interesting people who are a part of the running world. I'm your host Vinny Ajmera, and today we have with us one of the all-time greats of ultra-marathon running, the Comrades King, Bruce Fordyce. Bruce has won the Comrades, a simmering aspiration for most marathoners, an incredible 8 times in succession and 9 times overall. No other runner in the history of Comrades has ever achieved this feat before or since Bruce. For those of you who may not know, the Comrades Marathon was conceived almost a century ago, in 1921 to be precise, with the objective to celebrate mankind's spirit over adversity. It is an ultra-marathon of approximately 89 kilometers, run annually between the cities of Durban and Pietermaritzburg. It is the world's largest and oldest ultra-marathon race. There were runners who were contenders on the Comrades Up Run and others who were contenders on the Down Run. Bruce, on the other hand, broke the record in both directions. He has written a book, The Marathon Runner's Handbook, and I'm definitely going to grab a copy of that. And there's also a book written about him, John Cameron Dow's Bruce Fordyce, Comrades King. He is the CEO of the Sports Trust of South Africa and a very sought-after motivational speaker. It was amazing talking to him and learning so much about running and the races and running events. Bruce is full of energy, as you will discover in our conversation, so take it away. Hi Bruce, welcome to the Run to Win podcast.
Hi, yes, thanks very much for asking me to be part of it.
Thank you for being a part of it, because I know this is going to be one amazing episode we're going to have, given all your years of experience and triumphs.
Oh, okay, so, let's see.
Yes, I mean, because to me especially, a Comrades is like, it's a fantasy. It's not even a distant dream. And you've done this over and over again and consecutively so.
Well, yes, Comrades was a dream of mine from quite early on, because you have to understand, back home in South Africa, the Comrades is part of our consciousness. It's one of our biggest events. It's our biggest running event. And I think most South Africans who run will have the dream of running a Comrades at some stage or other. And so I had that dream of running it. And when I started training for it, I had no idea that one day I would win it. That's an extra fantasy. Yeah.
Brilliant. Just for the audience and the listeners to hear from you, how would you like to introduce yourself to them?
Bruce Fordyce, born in Hong Kong.
Okay.
Schooled in England, South African runner, not particularly fast, but good at running our very strange Comrades Marathon, which is 90 kilometers of hills and heat, and one-time archaeologist. There you are. I taught archaeology at university.
Interesting. Yes, very interesting.
Yeah.
So I couldn't help but notice you said not particularly fast. However, to win a race, you've got to be strong and fast, I'm guessing.
The Comrades is a race, you're right, you touched on the right word, there's a strength race. And so if you want, what I mean by fast, you want to watch fast, go tomorrow morning and watch the Kenyans and the Ethiopians running at just over a shade over 3 minutes a kilometer. Now I could do that pace for 10 kilometers, but not for 42. And so that raw speed I've never had, but what I have had is a lot of strength for my weight and my size. So I have an ability after 65 kilometers, something happens to people. Some start to crash and burn and others keep on going. And I'm one of the people who was able to keep on going.
Okay, that's amazing. So how did you, like you said, every South African has to run the Comrades once, but how did you think about getting into it when you did, and how did the journey progress?
Yeah, so if I go back, I was a good runner at school. You know, when you have school athletics day and nobody wants to run and everybody bunks and pretends to be sick, but they've got a day of athletics. And then the teachers had noticed that the longer the event was, the better I would be. So it would be, Fordyce, you're running the 1500 meters. Oh, please, so do I have to? Fordyce, you're running the 1500 meters. And then I would do quite well. And then in my final 2 years at school, I won the school cross country. But I went to a school that was full of artists, hippies, creative people, writers, and academics who've all done brilliantly in fields that have nothing to do with sport in later years. So winning my school cross country is no indication that you can win a major race like the Comrades Marathon. So then my sport faded away and I went to university, and like all good students, I was passionately left-wing, passionate in the pub, and passionately chasing girls. And then my fourth thing was maybe just passing each term, managing to pass my degree. And after 2 years, I went to an all boys game at my school, and it was a game of rugby. I used to play rugby at school. Can you imagine? Rugby is for huge, enormous, enormous guys.
And typically you won't see rugby players as much.
But luckily there's one position in the rugby field called a scrum half, which is for the fox terrier. And that was me, causing trouble at the base of the scrum. So I went back for this old boys game where they said it's old boys against the pupils in the final year class. And after 20 minutes, I was completely exhausted. And I realized this had never happened to me in my life. It had never been a question of the games going too long. I'd never thought about fitness. You just play your guts out. And so I realized I'd lost a lot of fitness. Then, combined with almost all these events coming together at the same time, was that I saw the Comrades on television. But a strange thing, in the old apartheid South Africa, we didn't have television. The government tried to keep news of the rest of the world away from us. So we only got television in 1976 for the first time. And I saw the race on television. Up until then, we had been able to distract our maths teacher, who had run one Comrades. If we asked him about the Comrades Marathon, he would go raving on about it, so enthusiastically, and we would miss at least half of a double maths class, which explains why I scraped maths in my final year. And so I saw it on television, and it wasn't my great friend and later on rival Alan Robb, because he won that year. That didn't inspire me, because I had no idea he was like a god running this thing. I'm not going to beat him. But it was more the ordinary people finishing at the back. And by the way, in those days, the Comrades was less than 1,000 people. Now it's 20,000. And so that hit in. So that stuck in my brain for a bit. And then at the same time, the other event that happened was my girlfriend broke up with me. So I had suppressed libido, nothing to do. So I start running. And then finally, I was quite a political animal at school and at university. And a lot of people will remember June the 16th, 1976, the students and pupils in the township of Soweto protested against having to be taught in the language of the oppressor at the time, which was Afrikaans. They wanted to be taught in their home language or in English. And they rioted. And we students naively walked to join them. We marched to join them. So we got set upon by the police and beaten up. I had this combination of things. I was wanting to get some control over my destiny, to have some project to give me meaning. And so I started running the next day. And I ran for 10 minutes around our rugby fields, and I ran at night in case anyone saw me because I was embarrassed. But very rapidly I progressed, very rapidly. The next day was at 15 minutes. The next day was a bit more. And so I progressed quite quickly. And then I joined the athletics club at my university and ran my first Comrades Marathon in 1977. And I came 43rd and ran a good time. And so then I was hooked. And then after that,
even for the first one, 43rd out of 1,000 is...
Yeah, it was and a good time. It was not a bad time, yeah.
Over the years, you were consistent and you kept training. And I'm sure, Comrades, even if it's your home marathon, it needs another level of commitment. So what were the driving factors for you to keep doing this over and over again? Because once you've done 43, okay, you've done once. Yeah. And then when you win a marathon or a Comrades, then you've done that too. So what drove you to win again and again?
Winning is a drug. It's an unbelievable drug. So in a sense, coming 43rd was winning because I ran much faster that day than I thought I would. So now I'm hooked. And then the following year I came 14th. So now I'm more hooked.
Huge leap.
But in the Comrades Marathon, the top 10 runners get special attention and they get gold medals. And in that second run of mine, I managed to fight my way to 10th place. And I held it for a few kilometers, but then I got caught and I slipped back to 14th. But I'd had a glimpse of the leaders, and what inspired me was I understood they were human like me. I couldn't believe it. They were also struggling. They were also hurting at the end. So then the next year I came along in 79, I was third. So now third place was podium. So that was massive. And then the following year I blew it. In 1980 I blew it and I came second. And then in 1981 I finally won. And that was it should have been the happiest day of my life, but it was a very sad day of my life because the same government made the Comrades Marathon part of the celebration of 20 years of apartheid rule. And they incorporated the race into a massive celebrations that they had to celebrate 20 years of the Republic and apartheid rule, which included tank parades and flypasts and politicians wagging their fingers at us. And they made our beloved race part of it. And so we protested, some of us protested by wearing black armbands to show that we were not in agreement with that. And so I was a very unpopular winner. So when I was running, I had eggs and tomatoes thrown at me and people were booing me. But the one problem with me
is... And you won despite all this.
I won,
this was going on
with a record. So the problem is I'm quite a gentle kind of passive guy. I'm a lover, not a fighter, except if you get me angry. And if you get me angry, then that's why I was a scrum half, the terrier at the base of the scrum in rugby, because that's the guy who causes trouble. And so I got very angry that day, and you don't do that to me. So I ran my guts out and won by 8 minutes. But I was a very unhappy winner. I was a very unhappy winner of the race. But then luckily, the next year I came back and I won again. And by the time I'd won for the third time, everybody loves a winner. So by the time I won the third time, South Africa had decided, no, this is the new champion. So I was then, and then the race started to go live on television. Before it was shown as a packaged event a couple of weeks later, but it went live. And in 83, I had a very good run. And I know it's stretching your imagination now to look at me, but wait, I'm going to tell you. In 83, I had long, flowing blonde hair.
Yes, that's such a cute picture.
I was beautiful. Okay. So it helped my image. And there I was, and I ran a very strong race and a very good race. So, and as I said, running is a drug, winning is a drug.
Right.
So once you've won once, you don't want to not win again.
So after third, fourth and fifth, which race did you tell yourself it's okay if I don't?
Okay. So the last one that I won was 1990, and it was my slowest winning time of all the times I'd won, and I inherited the race. I didn't really win it. There was a lovely, lovely guy called Mark Page who was leading, and I was too far behind him. I was not going to catch him. And then he started walking. And when he started walking, I saw him on one of our famous hills at the end of the race, and I knew I've got a chance because I'm not walking. And I caught him, and I won by 5 minutes. Now, my sister and I are very close. She lives in London, and she had started a whole modeling career in London, and she had never seen me run. So she came out for the 1990 race, and she came out and they gave her VIP treatment and they put her in the lead vehicle. So she watched me run, and she reminded me, when I crossed the line, she was the first to hug me, but my words to her was, it's over, because I knew I wouldn't win again. I knew I had got that one by chance. My speed was going, my strength. I wasn't quite the same runner. And I knew each year that went by, because these marathons hammer you. You know, it's a bit like being in the boxing ring. And I'd been in the boxing ring too many times. I'd taken a lot of damage. So I knew I wasn't going to win again. But by then I'd accepted it.
And how did you reconcile with that?
I just kept running.
Okay.
So the next year I came 338th or something. I don't mind. You know, it doesn't, I don't mind not winning like.
I think that's really nice. Yesterday you said that a big mistake that many people do is when they stop winning. I think I want you to say this line again.
Yeah, so when they stop winning, they stop running. They stop participating. I can understand it if you're a Formula One driver or a boxer or something like that. You have to give up. Yeah, you know, if I were a tennis player and I'd won Wimbledon and the US Open and the Australian Open and my career was over, I'd still carry on playing tennis. You know, and so I still love running because for me it's my important time. It's my time quite often alone with myself, other times with friends, and it's just become an integral part of my day. I mean, most of the time I run every single day, about 10Ks. Okay. I will miss, like I missed today because I've got 42 to do tomorrow, gulp. and I'll miss when I fly back to South Africa because the travel will take a whole day. I don't get stressed about that. But as soon as I'm home within a day, I'll be back into the program.
I think that's consistency then. I think that's one thing that really shines out, like to have done it over and over. How did you condition yourself? I mean, what were the things that you needed to work on to be able to do your first and then subsequently? Like, what would you tell the aspirants now? Comrades is another sport, according to me. It's not like a half marathon.
So I just started doing more training. But where I was fortunate is I didn't get what I call desperately keen titus. Desperately keen titus is a bug that affects lots of runners, and they start doubling their mileage. And then they wonder, why am I injured? So I increased my training load very gradually. And you can see it in the times that I ran, because for 8 years in the Comrades, I got faster every year. For 8 years in a row, I got faster. And so I was learning more and getting slowly stronger and fitter. I think it's almost like your legs have to bed in. And if you try and do it too quickly, you get a multitude of injuries. And so gradually what I realized was that mileage alone is not enough. That's great. It makes you strong, makes you capable of running a long way, but it doesn't make you that fast. And so I started to do a lot more quality work. And I shocked my road running friends by suddenly on Saturday afternoons going to a B League track race, on an artificial track, a tartan track, okay, and running a 5,000 meters or running a 3,000 meters. And some meetings I would go, I'd enter the 800 meters at the beginning, come last, and get blown away. But then I'd run the 3,000 later on at the same meeting in the later afternoon and maybe come fifth. And so I started to get a lot of speed from that. Again, nothing to rival the Kenyans, but much faster than my ultra marathon opposition. Okay. And so I always had this feeling that if I ever hit the stadium at the finish, shoulder to shoulder with another runner, they had no chance because I've got 2 more gear changes. So my fear always, if I was scared of anybody, of any opponent, it would be somebody who was quicker than me over 10Ks, over 10,000 meters. Then I would be scared. I'd have respect.
So given that you've done so much training and so much of hard work, what was your best?
200,000 kilometers I passed the other day. Wow. 200,000 Ks, yeah. So it's not surprising my knees giving me trouble. Yeah, I'm very strange. I've kept a detailed training diary from the very first run. So I have this pile of exercise books because we didn't have the technology in those days where you can download it onto. I'm so old school, I don't know what's going on. So I write it down. I write it all down, and a race I write in red so I can find it quickly if I want to refer to it.
That's commitment, though.
Yeah, but then what's great about it is if I want to find out what I did, I can go back straight away and have a look and say, wow, okay.
But Bruce, whatever you've done is gospel for anybody who is aspiring to.
Yeah, and I bought out it. And then, so what I did was I made a friend help me, to be quite honest with you, like an ebook where I wrote down, I copied from my diaries with notes explaining why I did it. Everything I did for 2 of my best comrades. So the one was the 86. Comrades changes direction every year.
Yes.
So it goes up from the one city to the other and down. So I did the 86 down run where I ran a very fast race, and I did the 88 up run where I also did a fast. And there I wrote everything. So my next project is to take my diary from my very first Comrades and put everything down there that I did with the notes, you see, because there you're a novice and you're scared and you're worried and this is going into the unknown. And I want to do that for people who want to run the Comrades for the first time so they can see, okay, so he was also frightened and didn't know what he was doing. Yeah, and it was, and blundering around and getting advice from people. So I will have all that there. And I even criticize myself. So in my notes, I'll say I should never have done this run. Look what happened to me 3 days later. I had flu.
And where would they find this?
Well, I haven't finished it yet. So I'm on my way. It all, because I'm lazy and because I get distracted, it will be out for the 2020 down Comrades. I won't have it ready for this year.
And you mentioned that, of course, you wrote down how you felt, even if you were frightened. So I want to take you back to that race where you told your sister that it's over.
Yeah.
What were you feeling at that time when you said that? And how?
It's sad, but I just knew it because as I said, I didn't win that. I did win the race, but it was given to me. Whereas in the other races, most of the time I commanded, I was driving that thing quite often and being followed by runners, but I knew I'm in charge here. And when I decide I'm going. Bye, guys. But that one everything was happening around me. Runners were going away from me and I wasn't able to do too much about it. The only thing I did, we have a wonderful word in Afrikaans. It's called vasbyt. Vasbyt literally translated means bite hard.
Okay.
And it means endurance. And the only thing I did was that I didn't stop. And I kept thinking, okay, so you're in the top 10. There's no disgrace. You're not going to defend your title, but there's no disgrace and then gradually people started dropping out and stuff. And suddenly I was third. And I was thinking, well, you're third, and then suddenly I was second. And then, as I said, I saw Mark walking and I realized, okay, maybe I can win this. But I was never in control of that race. And so that I knew it's over. So there was some sadness, but also a sense of relief because now you can get off the conveyor belt. Because what happens when you win a Comrades or even run your first Comrades, you can't wait for the next year. It takes forever. But when you've won it a couple of times, before you can blink, it's January and you think, oh no, here we go again, the treadmill. The training, the whole thing, and you're not ready. I still want to party a bit. Can we get Christmas back?
And did you also try to do the one thing that all of us try to do is conversions? Come on, you must run a Comrades, and it's great. And did you ever have that feeling with your friends around you? That
No, I'm a huge evangelist for Comrades. So I try to persuade. I mean, I know you're going to run, so it's,
it's like I said, that's a fantasy. That's
well, even as you said that means it's happening. If you said absolutely no with swear words, I would say maybe you'll run. If you say it's a fantasy, that means, yeah, I'm putting you down for 2021 start. It's guaranteed because that's what happens with people. You see, as soon as it gets into your brain, to explain how the esteem that it's held in, to me, three of the great runners who have run Comrades, who have recognized its status. One is Alberto Salazar, who won Boston. He's the only person to have won Boston and Comrades. Yeah. So he's coming from that speed and he won Comrades. In parentheses, not in such a great time. But anyway, he won Comrades. I can say that but anyway, I'm just teasing him. But so Alberto. Then the other two were Lisa Ondieki, who's an Olympic silver medalist at the marathon.
Okay.
Okay, so she's that far. She said, my CV is not complete until I have a Comrades medal. And she didn't run a great time. She just came to get her Comrades medal. And the same with the Japanese runner Yuko Arimori, who has a bronze and a silver from the Olympic marathon. She ran Comrades because, as I understand it, she said, the book isn't closed until I have a Comrades medal. So that's what happened. People are coming along. And lots of famous people. Hell's Kitchen's Gordon Ramsay?
Yes.
The chef?
Yes.
He's done 5 Comrades. People don't know that.
Incredible.
Yeah, I run with him. So there are a lot of people who come, politicians. It's a rite of passage. It's a long rite of passage, but it's a rite of passage, yeah.
So what has been your most favorite part of training? Because it involves so many different areas.
So I'm going to be honest. So I mentioned in the beginning that I sadly have left the academic world, but I was an archaeologist. I taught at university, but I was more a research officer. And in the beginning, I was really interested in early hominids and early man and going back, because we were born as a species. We were born in Africa and we learned to run in Africa. And we learned to hunt animals, and we were a fantastic running animal and hunting animal. But I specialized in Bushman / San, because we never seem to know what they want to call themselves, but the Bushman rock art. And Bushman rock art is art, paintings painted on caves all over South Africa, and it is absolutely exquisite. It is unbelievable, the fine attention to detail. And they're painted with pigments and ochre and eggshell and all sorts of things. And so this rock art is in our mountainous areas. And so while I was teaching and learning and being a research officer, I was also training for Comrades. And so I have some runs that I cannot describe to you in the mountains on my own, running around the corner, and there's a herd of eland. And the eland is the biggest gazelle buck in South Africa. And you come around the corner, you see a big male eland. He's got horns. He's built like a sumo wrestler, but with speed. And he's got red hair on his Adam's apple. And he looks at you like you owe him money. You don't.
And what do you do?
You stand still immediately. Because if they've got young, he's going to flatten you. But those, to run around the corner and run in a herd of eland that then started running, and they were running alongside me, and I'm looking down and there's the sunrise because I'm running early in the morning, and because I'm in charge, I've got the students doing all the work because I'm running.
That just really like animation to me. I mean,
and to run for hours at high altitude too, you see, because you're in the mountains.
And they'd run with you.
Well, they ran alongside for, but I mean, that's just one day. Most of my running career, I was a bachelor on my, if I had a weakness, party animal, and I'm trying to work it out. My son was born in 1987, so I won 87, 88, 90. So I had 3 more wins. So the bulk of my running career I was on my own. In fact, the bulk of my running career, I lived in a small flat with a batik hung on the wall, a mattress on the floor, and my Led Zeppelin album covers and Pink Floyd album covers stuck on the wall for pictures, and nothing in the fridge except wine and beer and sour milk because the milk's gone off. And I love that. Those were my best running days.
But then what would your diet have been?
Shocking in those days because I was a student.
Sugar?
Potato chips with gravy. Now I'm the complete opposite.
I'm not sure if I should put this out there, given that you are Bruce Fordyce, and they will.
So you see, Oscar Wilde is correct. Youth is wasted on the young, is his great quote. But maybe it wasn't wasted on me, but I ate badly. But if I went home to mom, then I would eat well.
Right.
Now, because I've got older and I'm getting fatter by the day, I'm low carbohydrates now. I've given up sugar, given up most breads, high fat, controversial diet.
So what's the diet called? Because our keto is like that, which helps.
Well, it's keto, yeah. There's got a lot of different names. Low carb, high fat. Paleo. Well, there's the word. I'm an archaeologist. Paleolithic. Yeah. So we're hunter-gatherers and we've forgotten that. And our digestive systems evolved over millions of years, and suddenly we think that it's okay to eat and consume a lot of sugar. It wasn't around. It might, a band of Bushman hunter-gatherers 5,000 years ago might have come around the corner and found a hive full of bees. The African bee, one of them, produces an agonizing sting. So they would try and smoke these things out, and they would get stung hundreds of times, and they would gorge themselves on honey, I'm sure, shoving it in their mouth with all the grubs and the worms and the baby bees into their mouth and pig out. But that would be once every 6 months. Your pancreas can cope with that. But now what we're doing is we're spiking our insulin levels 700 times a day, constantly. And then we wonder why we're getting diabetes into the. But big pharmaceutical industry doesn't want to tell you that because they want to sell you insulin.
Very true. That is so true.
Yeah. But all I can say, radical change for me. Radical change. I every year was progressively getting a little bit fatter. My friends, non-running friends, thought I looked great. Because as you get a bit chubby...
because I'm trying to register what you're saying because you look pretty fit even now.
Yeah. But I mean, the only good thing about getting chubbier is that your wrinkles pop out because they fill up full of fat. But the rest... and you look good in a suit. You wear a suit well, whereas on me, a suit hangs on me like a scarecrow. I look dreadful in a suit.
Bruce, I want to know, with all these years, was there ever a moment or were there moments when you just felt like dropping out? You were like, I've done it. Why do I need to do this kind of training?
Never the training. I love the training because the training is a project. And I'm a person who's driven. I like the process of, it's like producing a fine wine. It takes time. It takes a few weeks. It takes a few months to get yourself ready for a race. I love that. The racing hurts. Yeah. And so everybody in the Comrades Marathon, everybody confronts themselves at some stage. And in fact, tomorrow in the marathon. So I will tell you, everybody thinks the second half of a marathon is 21 Ks. It isn't. The second half of a marathon is 30 Ks, even though it's 42. Because those last 12, 28 to 30 Ks is the second half. The last 12 is where all the endurance, all the willpower has to come in. And at that point, there are a lot of reasons why you can drop out. But Marathon runners are a special breed, and they say, your body's screaming at you to stop. You say, I will stop when I get to the finish line. And I always say in races like the Comrades or in the Marathon tomorrow, out on the road, you can be surrounded by hundreds of other runners, all running, but you're totally alone because only you is going to get you through to the finish. And you're going to meet someone out there who you deeply admire and hero worship. And that person is yourself because you're the person who's going to get you through. And so in Comrades, the second half is at 65 Ks. At 65, if it's an uprun, it's a dreadful place called Harrison Flats. It's boring. It's dry felt, we call it in South Africa. Dry fields because it's winter and they've had no rain. And South Africa's national hobby, embarrassingly, is littering. So the side of the roads are covered with litter. We're in a disgrace the way we litter our country. And it's litter. And and the sun is glinting off all the roofs of the cars that are parked. You can see and a bit of sweat comes down, trickles down your forehead and goes into your eye. And you think, you pass a board that says 31 to go or 30 to go. And I don't need this in my life. And then you hang in.
What do you say to yourself?
Then you run the race in landmarks. So you say, I'm going to get that bit behind me. I'm going to get that next bit behind me. There's fantastic crowd support in the race. And I know there will be tomorrow. You use the crowd, a smiling face, you use whatever. You tell yourself that you've got a couple more hours of endurance, but the pain of dropping out is far worse, because then you have to live with yourself for all that time.
What makes you run better?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I suppose just being driven to run better and faster. And what's lovely about running is all the different distances. So, you can get excited about improving your 5K time. You can get excited about your half marathon, your full marathon, your ultra. So that always inspires me a lot. And then I'm not even sure if I should tell you about this because it's like persuading you to take a drug. But I can tell you that in South Africa there is a thing that is sweeping the country called parkrun. Parkrun, all lowercase, one word.
Okay.
It was started in the UK by a South African boy. It is 5Ks, free, on a Saturday morning. All you do is register and you bring a little barcode that's the size of a credit card, and that thing gets scanned when you cross the finish line and you get your result. We started it in South Africa at one park. So it's run in parks, on beaches, in farms, golfing estates, that kind of place. We started it 7 years ago. 26 people came to the first one. The following Saturday it was raining. 13 people came. And I'm getting the results from today. Today, around about 70,000 people ran and walked. And that's the important thing. We welcome walkers at 180 different venues. Our membership in February will be 1 million people. 1 million people are park runners in South Africa, and we're 7 years old. So what will we be when we're 14? And the magic of it is that I've now worked out it's healthy. It's a doable distance. 5Ks is not going to frighten you.
Yes.
It doesn't frighten Mrs. Smith, who's large and unfit, because we welcome walkers. And we say to you, we don't care. You will never be last, because one of our volunteer positions, and parkrun is organized by volunteers, one of our volunteer positions is the tail walker who goes at the back. And so you can never be last. And we will never laugh at you, no matter how slow you are. And for me, one of the most moving moments at parkrun, the other day I was at Mashishing Parkrun, which is a little town in a province called Mpumalanga. And a lady crossed the line and she punched the air. And she was a large lady carrying a lot of weight. She punched the air and I said, why are you so happy? She said, because I broke an hour for the first time in my life. Now, an hour is not going to frighten anyone from Nairobi because they do it in 12 minutes. But for her, it was so meaningful. And so that's the beauty. And then what we've realized, actually, it has nothing to do with the run. It's actually about community. On a Saturday morning, people cannot wait to get together and walk together and run together, and then afterwards go for breakfast. I mean, the marriages and stuff that's happening out of it, you can't believe.
Yes.
And they go for coffee afterwards. And there's a group called the Tourists who travel around doing a different park run every Saturday. I shall never mention it. Because
you shouldn't have, because
it
now
will explode in India.
It would be incredible.
So at the moment,
right.
it was started by a South African in the UK. 13 people came to the very first park, Paul Sinton Hewitt. And at the moment, it's in about 20 countries. It's huge in the UK.
I see
it's
this
huge.
Doing brilliantly. I mean, I'm already getting
Can you
geared
see
up.
the shame? Can I tell you the shame, India? Singapore has 3 parkruns already. Malaysia has 2. They've started.
But what's the plus in India when we start? It's not going to take us more than a year.
So the biggest frightening thing for Parkrun Global is that we will outgrow ourselves and bankrupt ourselves. Because when it's free, you say, how do you do it? How can you bring these things free? Because of sponsors. And so you have to get the sponsors in place in order to open a new country. Otherwise, India would bankrupt us in 2 weeks. Can you imagine?
Right.
Millions of people. We wouldn't be able to supply the equipment. So the way we progress is very slowly. So I'm in charge of Parkrun Southern Africa. I'm now moving into Namibia. We've got 3 parkruns in Namibia. A 4th will come. And we're in Swaziland, and except we were about to start looking at Zimbabwe, but as we know, there's terrible, terrible stuff happening in Zimbabwe at the moment. Our heart's breaking for our African friends and our cousins there. There's chaos and bloodshed. So Zimbabwe, we're terribly worried about it, so it wouldn't be appropriate to start parkrun right now. But I should never have mentioned it.
Yes.
Because it is unspeakably addictive.
It sounds doable.
Well, I've never seen anything so addictive in my life.
And it's not an effort to show up. A lot of times people may feel, oh my God, I've got to go and do a 1 hour run or a 2 hour run. But 5K is not an effort to show up, and then it's not an effort to also keep cutting or shaving off your seconds or minutes.
Yeah. So what happens is that the serious runners say, why would I go all that way for a 5K? I tell them, run from your house to the park, run the 5K flat out, run home. There's a great run.
So we'll just get into the sprint round where I'll ask you a few questions and you can give me 1 word to 1 line answers. Okay. What's the one running inspiration that comes to your mind right now?
Kipchoge Keino from Kenya.
I find him gorgeous to watch too.
He inspired me when I was young. Yeah.
What kind of runners do you run away from?
Ones who bump you too much while you're running.
What's the one running gear that you just cannot do without?
My cap, because I'm thinning on top. And I get burnt.
Okay. And besides Comrades, the one must-run event?
The Two Oceans 56-kilometer race in Cape Town. Beautiful.
Now see, that sounds a little
I've done
doable.
30 of those.
But why am I even saying that sounds doable? I'm not going over 42. Yeah. No, 42 at 42. That's it. That's my goal. And the last one, if you were not running, then what?
Sad, depressed, lonely old man.
And what other sport? What would you take to? So sweet, Bruce.
Yeah. What other sport? Walking. Okay. I suppose that's cheating, but I'm a very keen birder. I love birds, and I'm a keen birder, so when we go to the game reserves and things like that, I love that. So walking and, I'll probably think of something else. Okay. Partying.
Yes, that's come up a few times. Yeah. We're definitely partying when I come to South Africa. What are the kind of thoughts or any particular tearing epiphanies or learnings that you've had while running which you took with you to other areas of life?
I think probably that nobody wins the lottery, and you win the lottery of life by trying hard and working hard. And that has been taught to me. You will never win the lottery. You will never be a billionaire. There's a 1 in a zillion chance. You've got more chance of being hit by a meteorite that bounces off Venus and comes and hits you than you have a win. So you can win the lottery of life by finding something you enjoy doing and working hard at it, and you get all the rewards and you're like a millionaire. I'm not wealthy at all, but in life experiences, friendships, and things like that, I'm incredibly wealthy.
And you have fans.
Yeah, well, exactly. When I was a long-haired youngster wishing that I could play the lead guitar for Led Zeppelin and hoping that I would have said, why at the age of 63 would there be people who want your autograph? But I would have taken it if you said no, because there was a problem with wanting to be the lead guitarist of Led Zeppelin. One is I can't play the guitar. And secondly, Jimmy Page, who is the lead guitarist for Led Zeppelin, is so unspeakably good that I would never have been able to replace it. But if you told me that people will want a photograph with you when you're in your 60s, I would have said, well, I'll take that. But why? That would have been the question then. Yeah.
Interesting. Nice. So how can the listeners reach out to you if they want to find out more about what you're doing or keep updated with when your book is launching?
Although they can follow me on Twitter.
Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter.
So Bruce Fordyce, BRUCE.
If you start, it'll come up, yeah.
Okay.
I'm chasing David Beckham. He's got like 5 million followers. I've got 15,000. His agent's getting nervous.
No, as charming as you are, I'm sure they're getting nervous for more reasons than just your accomplishments for running. One last question now. Bruce, you have inspired so many people. You have instituted so many new events and races. You are now at a stage where you have finally decided to run that one last race where you're going to go all out and you win this race.
Whoa.
And this time there are thousands of people now from many different territories all out there waiting to see you get your medal, cheering for you, thousands and hundreds of thousands. And there's one message that they want to hear from you, from all the learnings you've had in life. What's that one message that you would give them if you had only 1 minute?
That winning doesn't necessarily mean breaking the tape. So what I love about our sport is that you don't necessarily have to be number one to be a winner. And in the Comrades Marathon, we had a remarkable man called Wally Hayward who ran the race at the age of 80 in 1988 and finished with 2.25 hours to spare. He did not win the 1988 Comrades. I did. And I hope you can detect the irritation in my voice because Wally stole all the TV coverage. Yeah. And so you win by overcoming the various barriers that are in your way. And tomorrow when I run, there'll be a lot of people who are simply not run. They don't have runners' builds, but they will win because they finish.
Fantastic. So winning is not about just...
No, breaking the tape. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It's been fantastic talking to you.
Okay.
Thank you guys for being here and listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, make sure you leave a rating and review and share it with your family and friends. Till the next one, get fit, get inspired.